Do you have a WPF application and want to take it to macOS or Linux? Avalonia XPF is a binary-compatible cross-platform fork of WPF. It enables WPF apps to run on new platforms with minimal effort and maximum compatibility. With a few tweaks to your project file, your WPF app and all its dependencies are ready for testing on new platforms. Start your app transformation journey with a 30-day free trial. Head over to avaloniaui.net/HanselMinutes to get started today. That's avaloniaui.net/HanselMinutes. Hi, I'm Scott Hanselman. This is another episode of Hansel Minutes. Today I'm chatting with Rob Frelow. He's a co-founder and chief AI officer at the StoryGraph. How are you, sir?
Hello, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
You've had a big couple of days. Of course, it'll be weeks past by the time the show gets out, but you were on the App Store very high up in the books category. So congratulations on that.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. It's been quite a wild ride these last few days.
Hopefully got lots of users and learned a lot of stuff. I had an observability expert on, and they said that you just learn so much during these moments if you've got a very observable stack.
Yes, I love that my stack is observable. I mean, it's a SSH access. I know exactly where the servers are. I'm the one running all the code on it. So I have full observability. And when it goes wrong, I know exactly where it is. Doesn't always make it easier to fix the problem, but I know exactly where it is. I know exactly where to go.
Let's talk about that. And your co-founder is Nadia Odonayo, and you are a startup. So you recently moved off of Heroku, and I would expect that startups go to the cloud. Like I wouldn't even conceive that a startup would not use some cloud, but you consciously made the decision to move off of a relatively inexpensive cloud to go with bare metal servers. Why is that?
Oh, frankly, we had to. We didn't have a choice. I don't think that the cloud works very well when you have a freemium model. When you have millions of users coming to your site using your app, you're doing very write and read intense actions that require a very powerful database, and they're on the app for many minutes at a time. We found that as our user numbers went up, our costs went up in lockstep to the point where we were literally never going to be profitable. And we forecasted it out into the future, and we saw that our company had no future if we stayed on Heroku. We had to get off. It was a forced decision. And frankly, it's been wonderful.
It's been wonderful. So that's amazing. So you've moved to bare metal servers. Now, are these like we went to PC Micro Center and bought servers and they're running in Rob's garage? Or where'd you find that balance? Because there's hosting, there's the cloud, there's running your own infrastructure.
I actually did pitch setting up my garage with a bunch of servers. And in some ways it makes sense, but in many more real ways, it does not make sense. When we realized we had to migrate away from Heroku, the big issue that we saw wasn't specifically where do we get the servers, where do we host the servers? That was a big issue, but it was how do we deploy to the servers in an easy way? Our entire company only has 2 full-time people, and Nadia is the only developer. I do the machine learning side, I create APIs for her, and I handle the backend, but she's the only developer. So we needed, as far back as I can remember, every bootcamp, every tech bootcamp teaches you like on Heroku. It's the easiest, or at least it was, it probably still is, the easiest way to just get an app up and running with as little fuss as possible. And we thought that we might lose that if we went to bare metal. And that's when I did weeks and weeks and months of research, and I found Cloud 66. And what Cloud 66 allows you to do, it gives us the same flexibility and the same ease of use as Heroku, but we can choose where the servers are. If I wanted the servers to be in my garage, I could just point it to the IP in my garage, and it will provision those servers for me. Cloud 66 is really the reason why we're able to be profitable, because we did not need to hire anyone else to manage the servers for us. I can handle it along with Cloud 66, and all Nadia has to focus on is doing her code, and it was the perfect combination. Now, to get more direct to your question now, yes, I could have chosen servers in my garage, but for a lot of reasons that doesn't work. I could have chosen cloud servers. I already explained that wouldn't work, too costly. So we rent bare metal servers. That's what we do.
Yeah, that's interesting. I want to make sure that people understand that the Cloud 66 isn't a host. It's a solution for building, for deploying, and for managing applications, but it's cloud non-specific. And it takes it allows you to have that Heroku style just push to a repository, CI/CD, whether it's in a mono repo or a multi-repo setup, and then whatever, if you want to use Cloud 66 to talk to, Azure or Linode or AWS, you can, and you chose to do it to Metal, which I think is a really interesting decision.
Yes, the next stage beyond that would be a co-location. But even that, it's fascinating to me. I really want to. I want to have some physical hardware that I own that's in a co-location dedicated data center somewhere that I can just drive to and fix stuff. But then I think I'm going to have to drive there and fix stuff. So
see, that's funny, though, because people who may not know, but you and I have been friends for a number of years. And I've always thought of you as someone who drives stick shift. And you enjoy that, though. You
Yes.
want to touch those servers. So the idea of Rob is going to drive to visit the servers just to put his hand on the hard drive and feel it, spinning is such a Rob Frelow thing to do. So that's interesting. How do you justify that, though, when you have a situation where just last week you are moving your way up the app store because the cloud provides elasticity? Can you call your bare metal people and they can rack it? Maybe not as fast as the cloud, but they can get you more capacity?
Yes, I can get new servers, dedicated servers within minutes. The issue was not specifically the number of servers. The issue was the same issue most companies have is the database. And I already had the most expensive database I can get. And apparently I needed 2 or 3 or 4. And I needed to set up replication. And maybe I need to have a distributed database. So there's all these things that I'm learning now that before this latest holiday season where everyone has joined the app, I always had in the back of my mind that, yes, I need to learn how to do this, but I think our setup will last us pretty far. And it just, expectations for this holiday season just blew it all out of the water.
That's amazing. It is an interesting thing, though, because you are freemium, right? Someone could log in. Like I'm logged into the StoryGraph.com right now, and it's all about these kind of order n for loops where it's like, okay, I'm a guy, Scott, who has n number of books, and then all the stats that go along with that, and the combinatorics become huge, and the joins and all the work that you're doing in that backend database are going to become huge, and I haven't paid you yet.
Yeah, that's exactly why we needed to have a low-cost solution. So we have well over 2 million registered users right now. We have a lot more users who don't sign in, who just use the app to help find their next book. So when I look at the stats, we have right now about 50 million books are viewed every day.
Oh,
and
wow.
When I try to think about what type of business model would work well there, a lot of people are surprised. People come up to me all the time and say, but how do you make money? You have all these users and nobody's paying you, exactly as you asked me just now. And I think we are very lucky and we are grateful to have a very warm and welcoming community that just wants to support us. We try our best. We have a Plus membership, just to be clear. A Plus membership, it's about $5 a month. And we're just crossed 10,000 Plus members. So we are profitable now after moving off of Heroku. But it's still a tough ride because how comfortable can I be when my whole business model is dependent on the goodwill of people who just love us?
And that's funny. I had a couple of people on recently who have Patreons, and it's really just if you've heard of the theory of 1,000 true fans. Are you familiar with that theory?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Right. So for folks that may not be, if you can extract $100 a year from 1,000 people, you have $100,000. Now you have a boutique, and you have certainly more than 1,000 true fans, but you are ultimately counting on them to continue to like you and not pull that $5 a month or whatever that monthly, that monthly Patreon that they are giving you. In this case, a Plus subscription. But
Yes.
then you're also adding new features and adding new value. Like right now, I'm on the community page of the StoryGraph, and even as I'm sitting here talking to you, someone less than a minute ago just finished reading a book and marked it and put their review up, and I didn't hit refresh. So now I'm doing the math and thinking about the connections to the backend database and the work that you're doing in real time, and thinking to myself, wow, the optimization work you're going to need to do to make this as good an experience as possible, but also as cheap as possible to run is really challenging.
It's been a huge challenge. The biggest challenge we've had over this holiday season, which we get most of our new users during the holiday season because everybody's ready for January 1st. They have this, like, people want to join the gym for the New Year's resolutions. People want to read more books, and everybody comes to StoryGraph because it's the best place to help find the next book and help track your reads. So we found that our daily users have more than doubled, like almost overnight. And the first thing people want to do when they come on the StoryGraph is import their Goodreads file. So just this holiday season, we've received about 100,000 Goodreads import files. And on average, each file has about 1,000 books between the books that they've read and books that they want to read. So if I'm looking at 100,000 files and each file has 1,000 books, so now we're looking at 100 million database inserts. But no, it's more than that because each book has about 10 different attributes. What was your review for the book? When did you add the book to the list? What was your star rating? Did you add any tags to it? So there's on the order of 1 billion inserts that we need to do to satisfy this 100,000 uploads that we've received. And what we found is that doing all of those inserts, while the app is handling more traffic than it ever has in our history, it just can't handle it. And we have outages. And it's been a huge struggle where I have to balance, do I want the app to be up or do I want people to get their Goodreads imports? So I have a short-term solution and I have a long-term solution. And my hope is by the time this episode is out, my short-term solution will have been well past implemented and the long-term solution is on the way.
That's such a classic scaling problem. It really reminds me of a situation I had about almost 30 years ago where I worked at a place called 800.com, 800.com, and they got bought by Overstock.com and went off into the world. But this is pre-Amazon, okay? And we had a highly optimized product database. So you would look at products and categories, and we had a tree view, and 99% of the people just spent the time browsing. And then one of the business people had the bright idea to give away 3 DVDs for $1. So then the traffic pattern on the site changed, and it wasn't 99% of the people browsing. It was 99% of the people trying to get out of the shopping cart. And that's that's write heavy, right? I can optimize the product database for reads. I can cache everything. But then suddenly this idea that 1% of our traffic is now 99% of our traffic changed. And we had to move. And in those days, it was physical. Today would be changing a Kubernetes node. And that can be extremely challenging. And I love that it's called the StoryGraph because it's like our social graph, which is incredibly complicated.
Yes.
You want those connections, but those connections are going to cost you, Rob, CPU cycles.
Yes, CPU cycles, brain cycles. I'm operating on 3 hours of sleep right now. We had 2 outages just this morning, and none of the outages were related to the database. And one of the outages wasn't even one of our providers lost internet access. So we're down and we couldn't do anything about it. Yeah, it's been a struggle, but I feel like it's a solved problem. And I feel like we're working towards solving the problem. And actually, when we were on Heroku, just to think about how far we've come in solving similar problems, because when you were on Heroku, we still had outages. And I remember I thought about one of your talks, Scott, and I remember you said, yeah, back in my day.
Is that your Scott impression?
Yeah, it is. Back in my day, my whole job was to do this, and this. And now it's just a slider. On Heroku, I just have a slider. I just move it up and I have more servers. Well, Scott, I called Nadia. I woke her up at 3 o'clock in the morning, her time, because there was an outage. And I said, I did what Scott said. I moved the slider all the way to the right and we're still down. What do we do? And we worked on that for a few hours. So
I assume it wasn't capacity. It was something else.
It was something else.
Yeah, it's always something else. It's always DNS, as Abraham Lincoln used to say.
Indeed.
I want to welcome Partner Hero, the Hansel Minute sponsor family. They provide customer service outsourcing that's built for the needs of scaling and high-growth startups. Partner Hero offers flexible terms, fast onboarding, and the ability to scale teams quickly, which is perfect for fast-growing businesses. In my experience, outsourcing tends to have a bad reputation as being exploitative and low quality. But Partner Hero's values-based approach will raise the bar for the outsourcing industry by investing in employee empowerment and focusing on career growth. They pay above-market salaries, and they maintain a focus on quality and performance. They also offer these flexible terms for you to scale quickly, which is perfect for startups. They bake quality assurance into every program, and they have offices around the world, so they can provide a truly global coverage. That means onshore, nearshore, and offshore. Outsourcing has long been available to big enterprise businesses, but Partner Hero is challenging the business as usual and bringing those benefits to startups. Short, flexible contracts, fast ramp-up times, values integrity, and expertise. If you're ready to bring in outside customer support help for your startup that feels like it's a part of your existing team, check out Partner Hero. Head on over to partnerhero.com/HanselMinutes. You can book a free consultation with their solutions team. Mention you heard about Partner Hero from Hansel Minutes, and they'll waive the setup fee. So one of the other things that's going to be great is as you build this graph, you build this story graph, is obviously the next thing is AI. And you're not the CTO, you're the chief AI officer, which I know means that you love and you care about AI. But I know that if you're running your stuff on the metal, you're definitely not just going to send a bunch of text to ChatGPT, because that's not how you want to do things. It seems like every startup is doing that, though. They're just sending huge amounts of text very expensively off to a third party and hoping magic pops out of a very large language model.
Because it's easy. It's easier to implement something like that. If I were not the big privacy guy that I am, I'm the guy who runs Linux on all of his machines. I got rid of my iPhone for a Google Pixel with Graphene OS. I use Proton Mail instead of Gmail, and I feel very strongly in the privacy of our users. So I would never do that. But during my limited tests using my own data, it was much easier. If I'm willing to give my data to someone else, you just got to be willing to pay. So like I said, we have millions of people hitting book pages. And as it is right now, for every book page hit that we have on our site, it's hitting a large language model that I'm hosting locally. So if that's millions of hits, I don't want to pay for that. Number one, I don't want to give up that data. Number two, and I don't want to lose our customers' trust, because if we are literally surviving, if the only reason we're profitable is because our users like and trust us, I can't jeopardize that by taking the easy path to a new feature. So that's definitely not us.
I feel like that's something that I think we're going to see more people putting on their homepage. Like right now, I can go to the StoryGraph.com and I can get smart, personalized recommendations, but it doesn't call out where the AI is. And I think that there's value in saying that it's local and that it's custom and it's trained and it can both give you value and be private. It's kind of like, I suspect you're probably a home assistant person. Like you don't want to turn a light off and talk to Alexa and have it go all the way across the universe and back to turn a light off. Of course not. If it can stay inside of your intranet. And the same thing applies in this context. There's no reason to send StoryGraph people's information to a large language model when you can have your perfectly good private large language model locally.
Yes, I think that is the path forward. I'm waiting for other people to see that is the path forward, but I'm not going to wait for that before we implement what I think is best for our users. Nadia gave a great talk a few months ago about how to get to 1 million users with a one-woman dev. And we have over 2 million users now, but the 3 mantras she had were keep costs low, keep the text simple with Ruby on Rails, and keep talking to customers. And this is something that we've heard from our customers over and over. Why was I recommended this book? Why would this book be good for me? I'm looking at the blurb, the book description. I just don't see it. And the large language model solves that. And it solves it for us in a way that I think works really well without having to compromise anybody's privacy.
They call that, at least at Microsoft where I work, they call that responsible AI. If you suggest something, say why.
Yes.
And I think it just makes people feel better, and it gets you out of the uncanny valley of creepiness, because, I think Netflix does a good job at this. Here's a science fiction movie because you liked this Schwarzenegger science fiction movie where he goes to Mars. You're going to like this movie where somebody else goes to Jupiter. That just makes sense to me. But just having the creep factor of AI recommending stuff because of this black box decided to tell you that you should read this book. There's a lot of value in the why.
I definitely agree with that. And we do have in a footnote, because we weren't sure exactly how the community was going to react to the large language model that we implemented recently. And we do have a footnote if you click on learn more or something where it says, yes, this AI is local. We're not sending your data anywhere. Your data is never leaving StoryGraph servers. And it's still scary for some people. It's a small percentage of our users who have expressed unhappiness about it. And we need to balance that with the vast majority of the people who are very excited for the feature. But I still can't leave those other users behind. So we, as part of, you said, responsible AI, before we enable it, there's a pop-up that says, this is what the feature looks like. This is what the feature is going to do. Do you want this? If you say no, you'll never be asked that question again. You'll never see it again. And I see screenshots of people on X or on Twitter or on Instagram, and I see most of the people have it enabled, but some people don't. And I think that's great because we are able to tailor your experience to what you're looking for.
Yeah, that is so important to be able to opt in and opt out of this kind of stuff.
Yes.
So when I filled out, of course, there's a survey, there's an opt-in survey on the StoryGraph where I put in the things that I care about. And I thought it was really cool. It's the first time I've ever seen a book recommendation site actually say, well, what turns you off? And I was like, wow, flat characters and boring bad writing and misspellings and all that kind of stuff. And so I fill all this out, right? And what does it say based on my recent reads? Octavia Butler. And it's like, you know me. You already, you know what I mean? right there, like book number 2 it recommended already is a book that I would read. Then it recommends The Shining Girls by Lauren Bucas, who I literally is a friend of mine, and I just hung out with her in person.
Wow.
So your AI model, I'm just like going through it, and I'm like, yeah, oh yeah, that one there too. That's so cool.
Yeah, this is my life's work right now, and I'm loving it. I'm falling asleep with the laptop in bed, happy that I wake up and I get to see what the process is that I was running overnight. I wake up at 3 a.m. just to check on how they're doing, because I'm really loving what I'm doing, which is why these latest outages during our peak time, it feels like January 1st for me and for us at StoryGraph, it feels like the Super Bowl. Like you can see it coming. There's this huge event. Everybody's going to be on your app. You make a plan, you prepare, and when everybody shows up, the power goes out. And I know that actually happened about a decade ago in the Super Bowl. And as a fan, I remember watching it, feeling bad for the workers, feeling like, oh man, this must suck for them. They're probably going crazy right now. And I didn't care that the Super Bowl was delayed for 30 minutes. But I'm sure for them, this was probably the worst day of their professional lives. And that's how I felt over the last week. This has been the worst week, the worst time of my professional life. And I'm getting through it, and I'm making sure it does not happen again.
I want to bring a little big dad energy here, if I may, for just a second, though. And I hope that you are giving yourself a little grace that while it may feel like it's the worst thing ever, the site's up right now. It's great. You've doubled your user base. It's working. There will be outages. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to hit 5 nines this year. You and Nadia should pat yourselves on the back because 2 people are running 2 million user base application. That's amazing. Like, kudos to you both for your work. Give yourself a little grace, my friend.
Thank you, Scott. That means a lot.
Yeah. So what kind of ideas are you going to come up with for the future? Because you have your 2 people, she's coding, you're the SRE effectively, the site reliability engineer and infrastructure. How do you manage keeping the car running while simultaneously changing the engine and tires while it's on the road?
Ruby on Rails is great for that. Nadia is the sole developer, but she's also the sole Android developer. She's the sole web developer. She's the sole Apple developer, Apple app developer. And I feel like Ruby on Rails makes it easy for us to react quickly, to create new features, to push once, and it's live everywhere. And we don't have to spend much time thinking about what to work on next, because it comes back to the other mantra that Nadia had in her talk. We keep talking to customers. The customers are telling us exactly what they want. They're giving us the roadmap, and we have a roadmap, and they're voting up and down. But it's very clear what our next moves are going to be. And there's no ambiguity for us on that. It's more of how do we implement it in a way that brings the user joy, and maybe in a way that they didn't think it would. So our latest end of year wrap up, we call it like StoryGraph Wrapped. Everyone loves seeing the graphs. Everyone loves a specific like a mood graph that we have that charts your reads throughout the year and has a lined graph showing like darker moods pull the line down and make it red, and happier moods move the line up and make it green, and people can see what their moods were like. It was interesting. People said it's like a map of their mental health throughout the year, because it tells them how they felt this on a graph. So that was really interesting. And we have all these cool and exciting graphs, but people were struggling last year to share them. And so this year we have an easy push button, create an image to share to social media. And we came up with a little fun graphic. Actually, Saran designed a graphic for us, and I'm very happy to have her help and support on that. And I think that was one of the main drivers behind the huge amount of traffic, the huge popularity we had on January 1st, because people knew that this was coming, and we gave them a huge surprise that they weren't expecting. But because we're talking to our customers and we're listening, it wasn't a huge leap for us to do these type of things.
I like the way that you're sprinkling AI around and you're sprinkling new features. Like, one of the features that I'm a fan of on the book details page is called StoryGraph Preview, which is effectively an AI book jacket. You kind of like, you're looking at the jacket of the book and you're trying to figure out if this is a good idea. It'll actually say, well, this is a good fit for people who are interested in these kinds of things and those kind of things. And then for Plus users, you actually have a personalized one, because as the more I read, the more you know about me. And again, with a local model, you're starting to look at my reading history and say, we think you'll like this because of that thing. And it's not one of those in-your-face things. Like, you could have made it a whole separate page.
Mm-hmm.
You made it a a natural part of the details page. You know what I mean? It's just kind of there, and it just made the details page better. And it makes me more likely to click add to up next and then read a book.
Yes. And since that feature, I found that our users through their feedback have found that it really helps them choose their next book. I'm not happy that it's a paid feature. We made it a paid feature not to help push people towards Plus, but because it's expensive. And I just, at the time we released it, I didn't know how I can serve millions of users that type of personalized response. But since then, I've figured it out. And in the next few months, we're going to be transitioning the Plus plan to more of a stats plan. And features like this AI personalized preview will be part of the free plan. So that's going to be the next technical hurdle for me to handle.
There's another feature I wanted to call out that I thought was really cool because I'd never seen it before was, and I want you to explain the difference between a buddy read and a read along.
Yes.
Because I have a lot of followers on Goodread, like hundreds, maybe thousands, because, people know you from around the way, and then they start to find you on other platforms. So then it's creepy because people are watching me read stuff. But I'm like, hey, well, maybe I could go to StoryGraph and we could have like a read along. We'll all read together like a book club.
Yes. So first, we will be releasing book clubs. It was supposed to be out for January 1st, but outages got the better of us. That will be coming out probably within the next week or two. But read-alongs specifically are for large groups of people where you want to have checkpoints, where maybe at the end of chapter 1, end of chapter 2, we want everyone to come together and talk about how they felt about that chapter, how they felt about part 1, how they felt about part 2. And it's an easier way for up to 1,000 people to get together and have a more structured conversation. A buddy read it's more personal, it's more intimate. And with the buddy read, there's no structure. When you are reading your book, let's say you're 23% in the book, and you write a comment, that comment will be tagged with 23%. And no one in your buddy read can see that comment, or they can see it, but it'll be locked. They can't read that comment until they've reached 23% in the book. So there are no spoilers.
Oh, it's a no spoiler.
Yes.
Okay. Because I'm always wondering, because I'm always like going on Goodreads and like commenting about stuff, but I'm like, oh shoot, did I just spoil the whole book because I said a thing?
Exactly. It's much easier to do things like that when you have a smaller, more intimate group. If you have 1,000 people and there'll probably be a comment on every single numerical percent from 1 to 100, and that's unwieldy. So we gave you more structure on that side of things. But for a buddy read, you can add comments, give little likes, thumbs up at any point in the book. And we find that's a much more intimate way to read a book with someone, one of your friends.
That is really cool. I know that the analogies just overwhelm me, but sometimes it's like Apple Fitness for books. And I want to like challenge my friend to a competition.
Yes.
We've got our reading challenges, my yearly challenge. I've set my 2024 reading goal, and then being able to go and say to my friend, hey, you should read this alongside me and let's go together. It does feel I'm closing my circles, except I'm doing it in the StoryGraph stats.
Yeah, I found it's a lot of fun. And I found that the main reason why we released these type of features, because from the very beginning, we don't want to be another social network. We don't want to cause burnout. We don't want to have gamification on your reading, because it's not supposed to be about that. But we found that reading with others will actually help you read more. You might even read books that you may not otherwise have picked, and you end up loving it. And we actually do have an AI feature that you type in everyone's name and it'll recommend books that it thinks everyone in the group will enjoy. And that's one of the things that I'm excited to release with the...
Oh, wow. So like doing an intersection of what we know about all these people who are all our friends.
Yes.
Here's a book we'd all love.
Exactly. That's going to be probably a center point of the book club feature when that comes out. But you can do that now just by typing in their usernames on that page.
How fun is that? Well, that is so cool. So 2-person startup, millions of page views a day, running on bare metal servers, deployed with Cloud 66, and using AI, but using it in a responsible and local large language model. Really cool, really innovative stuff happening with you and Nadia over at thestorygraph.com.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you hanging out with me today.
Of course, this was a lot of fun. I very much enjoyed it.
You can check out the adventures of Rob and Nadia over at thestorygraph.com. Sign up for free. Maybe enjoy their plus plan, and certainly you can follow Rob Frelow and Nadia Undayo on Twitter and anywhere you find social media. This has been another episode of Hansel Minutes, and we'll see you again next week.